Okay, welcome back, everyone. This is Chase, and today, excited to have back one of our recurring guests. We've had Lena Laakso, the HR business partner at Specialized in Salt Lake, visit our program in person in the past, and happy to have you join us virtually to talk a little bit about everything that's going on right now with COVID-19 and how that's impacted your world when it comes to HR, and just really wanted to bring you in and get your perspective. I've had so many questions from students and other people in the industry, people who are looking to get into the industry, just a lot of questions that I feel like are probably things that you're dealing with right now in your position. So wanted to have you on and talk a little bit about your perspective and what we're all going through right now and your thoughts. So thanks for joining.
I'm pleased to be here as always. Thanks, Chase.
Do you mind sharing a little bit, just to kick off, kind of, I guess, what are you feeling right now in your role personally and at Specialized right now? What are kind of the state of things in your world?
Okay, I'll start on a human level. Adjusting to working remotely when you are a people person has been difficult, but absolutely we're making do. I also have a husband in the house that works remotely all the time, and now a 6-year-old that we're supposed to be homeschooling. So I'm so fortunate that I have a job that I can do remotely, and we both do. So I'm feeling very, very, very grateful and recognizing that there's a lot of people that don't have that opportunity. That said, I'm excited to get back to the office as soon as possible. So that's kind of the landscape for my home office now. And other than that, I'm really grateful to be working for a very solvent, financially stable, great brand like Specialized, and one that we have not had to do any layoffs at this point. We have a few people on voluntary furlough where they've been paid for 4 weeks, and now they are on unpaid, but eligible for unemployment, and we're keeping their benefits going, which is really important to the company. So our goal is to keep everybody who wants to stay with us and reward those that have been working, which is the majority. And we run a distribution center, so as you can imagine, that's a pretty difficult environment to manage the social distancing, but we have just really doubled down on what that means and how to keep everybody working safely, not sharing equipment, commercial cleaning, extra time built into each shift for cleaning. And we have started, we've split up the workforce into now 2 shifts. Normally we just run a day shift. Now we have a night shift to just basically ease the congestion of people. That and we had been paying for the first 3 weeks time and a half for every hour worked for the people that were coming in, just as an absolute thank you, because people were worried. And that was the hardest thing to see when you have people that are over the age of 60, for example, live with vulnerable people, and they're scared. So that was one way to say you may stay home on paid time, or if you choose to come in and help us keep the doors open, you're going to be making time and a half. So that was a pretty successful strategy. We're kind of moving into more of a stabilization and giving premium pay, $3 an hour extra for all the worked hours. So far we have been doing really good. Our distributors and dealers have been pretty understanding about any delays that we've faced, and bikes are hot right now. So there's a pretty big demand.
Wow, it's just so interesting. I mean, everyone has a different perspective on and is in a different situation. It's other brands in the outdoor industry are, and not to say that you haven't been hit hard, but are in a position where they aren't able to pay that extra time and pay it forward and really take care of employees, and are having to let people go. It's incredible that you're in that position. How has that been for you, where your whole world is working with people now having everyone virtually, separate, minus the people in the warehouse. What has that transition been like for you, where your whole world is working with people?
Right now it's just remote. So there's a lot of Zoom meetings to communicate internally, and then with all of our team members, as we call them, they've got my cell number. My text is sometimes blowing up with just questions. My badge doesn't work, or whatever it may be. So, but people know how to reach me, and I'm just doing everything I can to be extremely responsive, so nobody feels like, hey, where is she? The support's not there. I'm probably actually more responsive now because I have less interruptions and less scheduled meetings. So that's so yeah, I think it's going pretty smoothly, and we have amazing supervisors that are at the distribution center. So there's always the go-to. We also have rider care and retail care, and everybody who can in our supply chain, everybody who can work from home is working from home. So we have a lot of people whose jobs are on the phone and on the computer. So they're just kind of, they've transitioned to that. One interesting thing that's happened, so retail care, as it obviously sounds, deals with the stores and the retailers. So those lines have quieted down. They're still absolutely ordering, but it's quite a bit less. Rider care, which is the people responding to rider inquiries, is blowing up. Now that people have time to tinker with their bikes and spend time on their bikes. So we've transitioned some of the work, the people that do normally retail, we've transitioned them to supporting riders and the questions that they have on technical product. So that's one way we've kind of pivoted.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned this one before we started, but this last month, can you speak to that, kind of what you saw this last month and that increase in interest in that service, and just people getting outside on their bikes, especially at this time, and as it relates to kids? I thought it was interesting what you mentioned with the kids market right now.
Yeah, we truly believe there's an amazing resurgence of interest in bikes that's happening, because it's one of the very basic, low maintenance, pretty much a reasonable entry cost. And who hasn't ridden a bike? Everybody has, right? So it's very much coming back as a family activity. I see it every time I'm outside. And we did have in March the biggest month of sales in the history of Specialized for the kids bike category. So people are getting their kids on bikes, and obviously that means new riders that are going to hopefully be lifelong riders, and that's exciting for a brand who believes that our first value is boss, and we exist to get people on bikes and promote that on a lot of levels. It's also being used as transportation. Anecdotally, I've heard that the hospitals are absolutely promoting riding to work, and the bike racks are overflowing there. And on the Specialized website, we have kind of transitioned our marketing strategy to reflect current times. And marketing, I'm digressing, but marketing is such a touchy thing, right? It's a very sensitive and public-facing value statement. And so as the COVID virus kind of came into full-blown force, our spring marketing campaign had to recreate the entire campaign. Instead of saying, hey, spring is here, go out and buy bikes, here's the sale, we transitioned into more of the aspect of essential bikes are essential, and essential workers need bikes. And we also had a theme of support your local business. Our bike shops are our lifeline. And so our sale was pivoted to be what we call click and collect. So you buy online, and you choose which retail store is going to receive the bike and assemble it. And therefore getting new people into bike shops that have never been into these shops. So the shop owners also got an increase in what their proceeds of the bike, because our company exists because of these people. So for now, they get the proceeds, the entire proceed for the bike. So we've just redirected everything to be support your local business and viewing bikes as transportation.
That's great. It's so interesting. Everyone's kind of going through this right now. It's how do we adapt and how do we be conscious and be safe and not send the wrong message, encourage good practices, good behaviors. But how do we also continue to keep our business afloat, right? How do we continue to sell products? That seems like a very interesting balancing act to have to deal with on the fly, right? Especially in such a short amount of time. Have you had kind of a similar situation internally? I'm sure you're involved in how do we communicate out to our employees and make sure that they feel safe and they feel comfortable? You mentioned some of the benefits and pay and opportunities that are being provided there, but what are some of those conversations that you've been a part of, just making sure that everyone feels safe? And what's that internal messaging like to employees right now?
Right. So frequent. It's
Yeah.
frequent because we have been changing pay practices, making new announcements. Obviously, we can't predict anything, so we can't, be messaging about plans that are going to be a month from now or 2 months from now because we haven't known. So it's been a frequency of about every other week, a very formal communication. And in the distribution center, what we're doing is we're basically doing a talking sheet and doing a meeting once a week, but every other week, here's the dates of this pay practice, and here's what we're doing. Here's what happens if you're sick. I mean, all the ins and outs that every scenario that somebody's facing right now, it's too much to verbally kind of take in. And so we've been giving handouts and posting them to people, which always have my number. So there's always the odd cases of, hey, there's a unique situation for me, and we're responding to that.
That's so important because I mean, this is just unprecedented territory for everybody. That it's nice to see companies that are willing to adapt and willing to make those accommodations, because this is just such a unprecedented, I'll use that word so many times, but
Yeah.
unprecedented situation. As an employee or maybe for people who are coming into or trying to get into this industry right now, it's an interesting time.
Mhm.
And very difficult. And a lot of companies just aren't hiring, and in some cases are letting people go. What would you say to people who are looking to, maybe graduates from universities who are, students who are looking to get into companies in this space? What would you say to people right now who are in that position looking for opportunities? It's in some cases I've heard some companies still need people as they've pivoted, and especially some companies here in the state have moved towards manufacturing PPE equipment, right? Or medical
Yeah.
devices. And so they've needed more help. But in other cases, companies are having to let people go. What are you seeing from an industry perspective?
Right. Yeah, it is very interesting. And it's hard to really know because some of that information isn't really public facing.
Right.
So I would say that the outdoor industry is absolutely going to continue to thrive, and it's going to bounce back. And in some cases more successfully, with some companies, basically succeeding, sometimes at the expense of some others. But I would say that it's important to really still think about your values, your personal connection to what industry, and down to the granular, what companies am I interested in, because we still need really good people. And whether that means we're looking at bringing people back in a month, or down the road, or we're hiring right now. We have some businesses, especially like in PPE, like for example, Goal Zero. I mean, emergency preparedness is just very successful right now. So, there's a good chance that they may be having, openings that are maybe long-term, maybe not, but I think that there's some opportunities when you think about, what type of industry. And then as some employees have chosen basically to go on unemployment and be on unpaid leave and leave employers, some of those employers are still needing to operate and have new vacancies. So it's a really, it is really hit and miss, but I would do the normal thing. If you can find somebody who knows somebody, see if you can find out what the business climate is, and then use the opportunity to just make yourself available to help in any way. And maybe that does mean, I love what DPS is doing with Petzl, and who was the other app?
There was Eagle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Eastman, Goal
Or
Zero.
Eastman,
Yeah, yeah. And I know Lizard Skin. There's a bunch of companies that are working together, but they need, their manufacturing is, they're working hard. So I love seeing that. The other interesting story is the Cotopaxi, and it's the Uncharted Supply Company, basically saying, hey, let's be roommates. We got to get all our stuff out of Park City and get the inventory into Salt Lake County, where we can still ship and operate, and have our employees, co-share warehouse space and share labor. So, that's a really cool innovation that just happens when leadership says, let's get creative. And so, yeah, there's some pretty neat kind of innovations that are happening.
Right. It's interesting to see those stories more and more. And I feel like I'm just, maybe I'm hearing them more because I'm here in Utah and seeing our industry respond, but it's great to see, these different leaders at these different outdoor companies take that position and take the lead. And it's encouraging to see that. And in a way, they show their colors, right? And they show their willingness to collaborate and do something that's bigger than just them, which is really great to see. How are you with, and it's probably too soon to even tell, but and maybe too soon to really talk about this, but how are you, does this whole situation change how you feel like you're going to evaluate talent moving forward? Like, how important is it now to find someone who is adaptable, who can I guess just roll with the punches? I don't know if it's even right to bring this up right now because it's so unprecedented, right? But how has your perspective changed on the employees that you're going to be evaluating moving forward?
Right. Well, I'll start with the current workforce. I mean, this was absolutely a time where true colors shine, right? So we've had some people just step up and do, just come through and demonstrate leadership qualities. And some choose not to. But that's been really interesting just internally to see, all right, when the going gets tough, this person pulls out some great results. So, between that and then I think our brand story and how we've been able to continue benefits and continue pay and do premium pay for the unforeseen future. I don't know when we're going to think we should back off of that. But I think when we are able to get some of those stories out, we do see amazing caliber of talent that are applying. So yeah, I think we're in a lucky situation where we're just able to continue to kind of upscale the workforce as natural attrition happens. And the interesting thing about, even though this business of fear and the whole coming to work, what's really interesting is there's been a remarked change in the attitudes. So morale has never been higher. People it seems like they've kind of let go of some of the petty complaints that sometimes used to be a distraction. And right now are just really focusing on, hey, what needs to get done? We're all in this together. And so the kind of the morale and the mood has been really, really something awesome to hear about.
That's great. How do you see, again, kind of looking into the future and pull out your crystal ball? Do you see, with everyone being, not everyone, but in a lot of situations, people are being forced into work from home situations. How do you see that changing the landscape? Once we get through this, do you see work from home becoming more accepted across the industry and across industries in general?
I think we will. I think we will, especially for kind of measurable work from home, where it's easy to see, hey, who's keeping up on their turning around inquiries and transactions.
Hmm.
And so I think that will be something that people will have. They'll be able to say we have metrics to show, and in some cases, we're going to have metrics that say these people were more productive than they ever have been.
Right.
So, so I think we'll be looking at exactly that, and also making sure, for the people that find that a valuable thing, cut down on commutes. That is going. It's going to be hard for businesses to say no, we won't do that anymore because we don't have a good reason to explain this to you. But um, even though productivity was awesome, you you know cut down on your commutes and all that. I think it's going to be a conversation where leadership needs to look at how are we running the business? Do we have the people we need? Are they suited for work from home? And if so, we need to really take a hard look at that. Um, I guess I have my family lives back in Finland, my relatives, and they just did a study, a survey, and they found that basically pretty much everybody said unanimously, I sure hope that I'll be able to continue working from home. So it's, for most people, it's gone over quite well. I think people with young families, it's a little more difficult. So,
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I
so
think of some of the benefits that we're seeing in a way from work from home, and even some of the climate data that you've seen out of places like China and over some of those larger cities where everyone is home. Um, a lot of the air quality issues like going away. I wonder how that would impact Utah, and I haven't seen any data around the state, with everyone staying home here, if we're seeing some impacts there, but some interesting things to look into moving forward once we get past this. Some of the other benefits of encouraging work from home and cutting down on commutes
yeah.
and encouraging more people to get out on bikes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, our managing people is different.
Hmm.
If you're not able to have casual contact, what does that look like? So I
Yeah.
think management style is really important to look at when thinking about work from home. So
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Now, in your role as well, you've spent some time working with the Utah Outdoor Association as well, and really supporting those initiatives, and been a key part of that group. I guess, what are you seeing from a Utah perspective, and what's happening with that group? And just what are you seeing from other outdoor brands here in the state, and kind of the state of things here in the industry in the state of Utah?
yeah, great question. So the Utah Outdoor Association business leaders. And for the most part, this really put everything into kind of a halt in terms of events. That's one of the way we connect with community and potential talent. But that's not unique to the outdoors. But what we've been kind of focusing on is just providing knowledge share between businesses and making sure that we've held internal sessions on what is everybody doing? How are you dealing with COVID? And can you share some of the communications that you've put out describing what you're doing? And so we're doing quite a bit of knowledge share internally. And then we also partnered for a virtual session with the Summit Speaker Series, um, that was a webinar where we had a participant there. And we also feel like it's not a great time to do a lot of self-promotion at this point. And our business leaders are pretty consumed with keeping, the doors open. So we consciously decided, let's take a little bit of a step back for the moment, and at least get stabilized through the summer. And once we can start holding events and those key initiatives, that's kind of, I think, when we're going to kind of get back into action.
Right. No, I think that makes sense. We touched on this a little bit, but in your role with UOA and just who you are, you're so connected with everything that's happening in the Utah outdoor industry and beyond. What other success stories are you seeing, or positive things are you seeing from brands? We touched on a few, some of these collaborations, and the good stories that are coming out of this. Any others that come to mind for you? Positive things that, or even things that brands are doing to adapt during this strange time.
Yeah, I think I have touched on the ones that are most dramatic, but yeah, that one's a hard one, because again, you can anecdotally get some of that. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a ton. Yeah, it's mainly the DPS story and Cotopaxi. I guess what we're doing. We've been doing some benchmarking with some other companies, and I will decline to name them, because what we're finding is not everybody is able to do these creative and innovative worker-centric practices, and that's the way it is. So yeah, there's some people that have been told, yeah, you come to work or you don't have a job. I think there's everything under the sun is kind of like on the table right now for what to do.
Yeah. With that said, can you give us a glimpse? And we talked a little off air about this, but can you give us a glimpse into how Specialized has been able to do this? Like what puts Specialized in a position where you're more able to, take care of the employees that you have right now, and do a little bit more to put them at ease and take care of people? What allows you to
Right.
do that?
So great leadership and great business management. We are owned privately by our CEO and founder. Established in 1974. We need the best people to be the best bike brand ever. So just a relentless look at continuous improvement. So that's one piece of it. And the bike industry is so innovative. We're launching new product at amazing speeds. And so I think innovation is just really at the core. Let's try new things. Like our new Levo Turbo SL bike is a 37-pound mountain bike, which is what a standard mountain bike weighs. And so just like the kind of innovations that we're able to do has been why I think we've been able to kind of pivot. But yeah, being able to be financially stable with a leader who places such a high value on people, that's the reason our practices have been the way they are.
That's great. That's awesome. Can you share some tips for, I work a lot with students who are looking for career opportunities in this industry. If there aren't job opportunities available, what do you recommend, student or someone who's looking to break in? What do you do with this time that you now have? Is there an opportunity to refine skills? I'm sure, get in, brush up that resume, that portfolio. What do you recommend to people right now who, maybe there isn't a work opportunity available, but there's other things that they can do to prepare themselves and use this time to prepare?
Yeah, great question. So basically, prepare yourself to have an amazing answer to the question, what have you done during the COVID, stay home, orders? And how have you spent your time? Because that's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be asking those questions because we know that's kind of in lieu of a job right now. So that, and I think that's as individual as you want your personal brand to be.
Mm-hmm.
So Absolutely try to incorporate something where I taught myself a new skill, and watched every YouTube video on whatever it may be, bike mechanicking, for example. Um, and continuing on with your studies. That hasn't stopped. You're doing that online. And just be prepared to describe what how you've tackled it and what you've chosen to do with your time and why. So that's you do want to have a story, because there's some people doing great things, whether it's volunteer support, or honing up on whether it's okay, I've gotten on my bike a lot more, whatever it may be.
Right. Oh, I think that's great. I had a conversation with someone else about this and some similar answers. And I thought one of the most valuable was, they said, especially those people who just go, go, go and work really hard, maybe take a little bit of time and just breathe for a minute and just realize, okay, just like center, and kind of just figure out, what do I want to do moving forward? And this individual had actually been let go. And so in his case, his first inclination was, I'm going to get into my resume. I'm going to tweak everything. I'm going to brush up. And he realized, oh, maybe that's not what I need to do right now. I need to step back and just refocus. And then I'm going to get into all those things, which I thought was an interesting perspective, because I'm similar. If I were in that situation, I know I would just dive right back into projects and work and kind of grind it out. But I thought that was an interesting perspective. So I think all of those, so valuable, especially at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think focusing on that personal side,
Mm-hmm.
also, like, this is the first time I've ever been able to spend this much time being a mother. It's been challenging, and I'm taking breaks at different points in the day, but I'm super proud of the fact that I've been able to spend this time with my daughter, help her with her homework. And if somebody asks, I think that's a great answer. It doesn't need to be work related or professional or academic, but if you have a personal journey or personal need that you're figuring out, I think that's equally as important, because at the end of the day, we are looking for people that have passion in life. And that can be a wide range of things. But that's how you can kind of demonstrate, here's who I am. And I think thinking of it in terms of not necessarily just a total resume builder,
Mm-hmm.
great, but round out the rest of your personal branding.
I think that's great. And I think that's very much in line with just the DNA of this industry being passion, right? Passion for activity. I think that falls right in line with that. What I guess, just kind of wrapping up, how do people stay in touch? Well, obviously with specialized.com. But if people have questions for you, how's the best way to stay in touch with you and what you're doing?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great way. And then I think people know that I don't really keep my email a secret. So, shoot me an email, and I try to get back to everybody best I can. Sometimes it takes me a little bit, but, and if you haven't heard from me, reach out again. And so, yeah, my job is to connect with talents. And whether that's talent at the other end of the email or a friend of theirs, that's all. Those are how I network. So I find that time and those relationships to be really valuable.
That's great. We'll leave links to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes to this as well. Any parting thoughts? Anything you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, hang in there. These are tough times, and I can only imagine if you're coming to the end of your schooling or suddenly without a job, and you know that you're still needing to study, that you just hang in there, and we are going to get through this, and in some cases we're going to be stronger than ever. And look at this as a time where a lot of businesses have gotten disrupted. And with disruption comes great opportunity. So have a think, it's kind of the Wild West out there right now.
Yeah.
So feel free to be more creative in how you view your job search. Be more creative in maybe what you're considering. And if you have any wild ideas to run by me, I'm happy to give you my 2 cents.
Well, that's great. Well, I feel encouraged just hearing that. That was a great pump up. Well, thanks again for all you do, for these lessons you shared, for all you do for students, for people in the industry. Thanks for taking time, especially during this crazy time. So,
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
of course, thanks.